Hi guys, welcome back to the Curly Reader. Today it's time for another installment of my ongoing series, my growing TBR. In this series, I take each month and I look at any of the books that I have added to my Goodreads want to read list, and I explain why I added them, and if there was a specific recommendation from someone, I will let you know who I got that recommendation from. And it's just kind of a time for me to go through and evaluate why I put things on my TBR, explain to you what appealed to me about them, and take things off of my TBR, kind of purge them if I can't remember why they're there in the first place. So let's go ahead and get started, and I'll let you know about each of the 10 books that I added to my TBR, my Goodreads TBR, during the month of July. Okay, if you hear kids playing in the background, first of all, the kids are still home. It's still summer vacation here, and they are quite rowdy today. So they're just playing, and I'm letting them play and be kids, but I need to get this done, so we're just gonna get her done. The first book that I added to my want to read list on Goodreads this month was The Sparrow by Mary Doria Russell. And I heard about this book from Olive, from a book Olive, and it was in her Top Books of 2019 video. I will link all of the videos that I'm mentioning because I kept really good track of them this time. And I will link those all down below in the description box. So please be sure to check these people out if you are interested in them. This is also kind of a way for me to do some booktuber shout outs because this is where I get my recommendations from. So The Sparrow by Mary Doria Russell was on her list of top books of 2019. And this is a book about extraterrestrial life and a group of missionaries from the Society of Jesus that go and try to minister to them. I believe they kind of go out on a scientific expedition and see what kind of stuff is out there, I guess. I don't know. It just sounded really interesting. The way that she described it really piqued my interest, especially kind of like as a Christian who has had very close relationships with, I have family that's in missions and that sort of thing. It's just something that piqued my interest. So I thought it was very interesting, and it has a pretty good rating on Goodreads, so I went ahead and added that to my list. The next book that I added is The Care and Feeding of a Pet Black Hole, and I heard about this book initially from Krista at Books and Jams, and this was part of her June book haul, was where I first heard about this. And then I also think she might have read this during Reading Rush also. I'm not 100% sure. Anyway, this is a middle grade book that deals with grief and a little girl whose father dies, and she kind of gets this pet black hole, and it starts feeding it things, and it starts kind of consuming her life. And so it's about depression, I think, and grief, and it's a middle grade book, and I'm always down for a good middle grade book. So I added that one to my TBR. The next one that I added is New Kid by Jerry Craft. Oh, sorry, I didn't mention that The Care and Feeding of a Pet Black Hole is by Michelle Cuevas. So there's the author for that one. The next one, like I said, is New Kid by Jerry Craft, and this one I heard about from Audra Reed, and it was in her What I Read in March and April video. But New Kid, I believe, is a graphic novel about a new kid in school. And it says in the description on Goodreads, it says it's perfect for fans of Raina Telgemeier and Jean Luen Yang, who wrote Chinese-Born American, American-Born Chinese, something like that. It's a graphic novel also. I've read I've read most of Raina Telgemeier's, and I have read the American-Born Chinese. I think it's American-Born China? I'm messing all that up. Anyway, I have read both of those authors though. And it just says it's about starting over at a new school where diversity is low and the struggle to fit in is real. And so I believe the main character is of a minority race maybe, and is moving into a school that doesn't have much diversity. And so that sounded very interesting. I like my kids to read stuff like that because I think it gives them a good perspective on what it's like to feel like an outsider. But yeah, so I would like to read that and then potentially see if it's something that my kids would like to read. So I added that one to my TBR. And then after that, I added Book of 1,000 Days by Shannon Hale. And James Noel Smith is the illustrator, I guess. But that's by Shannon Hale, and I heard about this one from Cozy Reader Kelly, and it was in her middle grade recommendations video that she did this past month. And I believe that this is a retelling of a little known Brothers Grimm fairy tale, and it's reset in Central Asia. I don't know, it just sounded really interesting. I like fairy tale retellings. I know Shannon Hale does quite a few fairy tale retellings. So I just decided to go ahead and throw that one in there. I believe Shannon Hale is the one who wrote Goose Girl, which if it's not on my Goodreads TBR, should be, because I've heard a lot of people, especially Haley from Haley and Bookland, she talks about that one quite a bit. And so anyway, I heard Cozy Reader Kelly talking about this though, and it sounded good to me. So that one I added. I also added Shout by Lori Halse Anderson, and this one I initially heard about from Emily at Books for Life, and it was in her June wrap up, and I believe it was probably also in a TBR video of hers. But this is a memoir by Lori Halse Anderson, who wrote Speak, and I believe that it may be written in verse. I'm not 100%. Yes, it's written in verse, and it just kind of talks about her experience writing Speak, because Speak was based off of events that reflected her own experiences, and so that sounded interesting to read about, especially in a verse, like poetic format. So I went ahead and added that one. The next one that I added is The Chilbury Ladies Choir by Jennifer Ryan. And this one, my mom actually recommended to me. She sent me a Goodreads recommendation for this one, and it is set in 1940 in Kent, in England, and it is about a choir, and all the men go to war, and so the ladies start filling the choir for the church, and just kind of how it bonds them. And so I went ahead and added that one. Then I added The Library of Ever by Zeno Alexander, and this was a cover ad. I saw it at the library, and it just looked really cute. It's another middle grade. I am a sucker for middle grade covers. Like, I would check out all the middle grade books just because their covers look fun. But anyway, this one is about a girl who finds like a secret doorway to the ultimate library, and finds out that she is going to be an apprentice librarian at this like magical library. And so that just kind of sounded like something fun. So I went ahead and added that. The next one that I added is A Tree Grows in Brooklyn by Betty Smith, and I added this one. This is kind of on that list of classics I haven't read yet that I probably should have read by now, but I've never read it. It is one that I added because I saw Heather from Soggy Expat Book Nerd. She mentioned it in her video of her 10 favorite books of all time, and so I thought that I should probably add this one to my own TBR because I had never read it. But it is just a classic about coming of age at the turn of the century, and I don't know, I'm not really 100% sure what else it's about, but she ranted and raved about it, and it made it sound appealing enough for me to add it to my TBR. So I added that one. And then the next one that I added was The House on Mango Street by Sandra Cisneros, and this is one that I heard about from Amy Poole, and she had it on her summer reading recommendations video. I think this is kind of a combination of a bunch of like smaller stories about this young Latina girl growing up in Chicago, and just kind of her stories growing up. It sounded really interesting though, and definitely one that I would like to check out. Since reading some of the stuff on Goodreads about it, have realized that it's fairly popular. And so yeah, it's just one that I think would be a good one to read. I also added One Crazy Summer by Rita Williams Garcia. This is the only one on this list that I've actually already read. But I did hear about this one from Sarah at Hardcover Hearts. She had it on her mid-year book freakout tag, and it is middle grade. She doesn't typically mention a lot of middle grade, and so that's what kind of sparked my interest in this. Anytime I see someone who isn't typically a middle grade reader suggest a middle grade, it piques my interest. And so this one was about a girl who goes to see her mother in California. She lives in New York. So her and her two younger sisters go to see their mom in California. Their mom had abandoned them when they were very, very small. She's now 9 or 11, I think. Anyway, and her mom is in the Black Panther movement in California. And so it's just kind of about her summer spent there with her mom, who doesn't really want anything to do with her. And her learning about the Black Panther movement and all of that. So it was interesting. It wasn't quite as good as I was hoping it was going to be, but it was very interesting to read about, and I definitely appreciate that recommendation from Sarah. And then after that, I also added Midsummers Mayhem by Rajani LaRocca. And this is one that I heard about from from Kara at Wild Book Garden. And she had this one on her middle grade magic TBR. And this is a retelling of Midsummer Night's Dream, which is a Shakespeare play, and it happens to be my favorite Shakespeare play, and it's middle grade. So yeah, that was a definite automatic. I actually have it out from the library now, and I don't think I'm going to get to it before I have to return it. But I went ahead and grabbed it in case I could read it during middle grade magic, but it didn't happen. But it's definitely one that I do want to read. I just don't know when I'm going to get to it. So it sounded really, really good though. Retelling of Shakespeare in middle grade format. That's a good one for me. All right. And then the last one on this list is Age of Miracles by Karen Thomas Walker. I learned about this one from Amy Anders. She had it on her Reading Rush TBR. And this is a story about a girl who awakens and realizes that the rotation of the earth has changed. And so it makes the days longer, and kind of how the world acclimates to that. It's, I think, a little bit sci-fi in that regard, or dystopian maybe in that regard, but just kind of how it affects human behavior and how the animals interact with nature and that kind of stuff. It sounded really, really fascinating. It doesn't have a super high rating on Goodreads, but just the premise of it sounded really good, and so I went ahead and added it, and I'll see if I can get around to it here soon. So those are all of the books that I added to my TBR during the month of July. Since I've started doing these my growing TBR videos, I have tried to pay really close attention to where I'm getting my recommendations from and why I'm adding things and making notes of them. And that's kind of nice, because then I just kind of get this idea of where my influences are coming from, and I really enjoy being able to analyze that. So I hope that you enjoyed this and kind of got to know a little bit about my tastes in books and why I add things to my TBR. I also hope that you go check some of these ladies out. I hope that maybe you can get some recommendations from them as well. And yeah, other than that, I hope that you enjoyed this, and I hope that you subscribe and stick around. And until next time, see ya!